Thanks for everyone. As you're logging in, make sure that your first and last name, institution or school that you're at, along with your membership status in your district, are in your title, your name when you log in here. Most of you have that, so thank you. But just as a reminder for first timers, or if you're on a new Zoom call, make sure that's all set up. So we'll get started here in a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
All right, just getting the last few people here signed in. And is Rashida on the call yet? Don't see her yet. Awesome. Well, I will go ahead and get started with everything. Waiting for one more person, but I can at least get started here. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for attending. Really looking forward to this one. Great timing of this session with openings of jobs and hiring of students and all that falls in between there. This is a real important part of this time of the year. We're looking forward to having this discussion and kind of some housekeeping type things. Please make sure if you do have questions, especially additional questions as we go through, if something you really want to get answered, you have on top of your mind now, please send that over so I can look at it. Just shoot me a direct chat through Zoom here, and we'll get them the questions asked and hopefully get great answers for you guys, and we'll go from there. So without further ado, oops, let me go back. Just a few Uncommon Sports Group updates. We are actually having a great year so far as donations. I see, notice a lot of you are getting your gear in early. Just as a reminder, we really will take anything under the sun. I saw Peter floating around on here, and we're helping him with clean out of a bunch of old uniforms, used cleats, old logos, anything that you guys have, we're finding a home for. Just had a really great story of taking on 75,000 pounds worth of old youth football uniforms and getting them overseas to a few countries in Africa instead of burning them. That was the other option. So if you guys have anything like that, please let us know. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, that type of thing, but we'd be glad to kind of walk through anything. The other big thing, I sent out an email, we've promoted on social media, is our CWS, Christians Working in Sports Conference. You could everyone do me a huge favor, and if it's not for you, that's fine, I get that. But if you could share it with, if you've got campus pastors or chaplains or people on campus that it might be a good fit for, if you could share that, that'd be huge. Registration's open, and if anybody needs a discount code, please let me know. I'd be glad to provide that for you. So that's it for Uncommon updates. Just make sure with CEUs, again, make sure you have that listed. As we get to the end here, or we'll have the QR code where you can register and get your CEUs that way. Make sure you have probably your phone, get that logged in during the call here. So that way we can have you scan and get everyone get their credit for attending the meeting here today. So upcoming sessions, our kind of next one is going to be focused on the hiring of student managers. I see a lot of you advertising that, so it'll be really, really perfect for it. And then we hop into prep and post convention type stuff. So it's coming up. Make sure we're registered. Make sure you're grabbing those flights and hotels and all that kind of stuff for convention, because there's a few other events from what I've learned that are going on at the same time. So make sure you jump on that as soon as possible. And to kind of jump into today's panel, before I jump on, is Jalen or Katie, do you guys have anything to say before we get started?
Oh yeah, I have one thing real quick. Last meeting, after the last one, we sent out a survey to get some feedback on these meetings. If you can check your guys' inbox and just search like mentorship and engagement email and fill out that survey, that is really helpful. We also just went live with our YouTube channel that has the recordings from all of these panels. So if you want to go back and watch like the track and field one or the work-life balance or anything, all of that is uploaded on YouTube. The page is Mentorship and Engagement AEMA. If you guys need help finding our links, I can go ahead and send that out. But go ahead and check that out. If you have any issues, just let us know.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We got 4 members on the panel. Rashida, are you here? I'm going to do a last check. I haven't seen her pop on. Katie, have you seen her on here?
Oh, sorry. She got called into a meeting with a couple of coaches, so she might jump on, but might not. Perfect.
Okay. Sounds good. So Cliff Perry from Princeton is able to join us and kind of help us through this. JD, thanks for joining us from Wyoming today. And then Anthony joined us from Rutgers. So we got 3 great panelists to kind of go through some questions with. Again, as a reminder, if you have questions that you have on top of mind now that you want to get answered, please submit them. I'll try to get them if they fit in, or at the end, I'll get to everybody. So first big topic we're going to cover is resumes. Let's focus on the resume side of things. This sits personally for me. My wife, after 17 years is in healthcare. She's looking to get out, believe it or not. And hasn't updated her resume in a while. So we've had to go through and do this. So this will be a great one for even me to take notes on. So big thing is obviously keeping them updated as you go through, which is a huge help. So first question I'm going to ask for you guys to answer. We'll start with Cliff, then go JD and Anthony. So Cliff, what are good must-have qualities on a resume that you look for when you're just getting that first initial resume in hand? What are you looking for?
I think one of the things that I see a lot on resumes that honestly frustrate me is when people highlight things that really don't have anything to do with equipment management. If you're applying for a job as an equipment manager, don't tell me that you threw shirts into a stands as a marketing intern and things like that. That could be a bullet point. It could be one line, but you don't need to put, you know, great detail about that. Uh, Talk about the things that you've done in the profession for the job that you're applying for. Change it for everything that you do. If you're going for a marketing job and the last one you did was an equipment job, change it up. Make it so that it's specific to the job that you're applying to, because half the time it's hard to glean. The last job that I had for somebody to apply for, there were 72 people that applied for the job. I've got to whittle that down in about a week-long period to who the 8 people are I'm going to phone interview. So if I'm looking at it real quick and I don't know you from Adam, and there's not somebody at your school that I know that I can call to find out about, I'm just going to look at it. And if there's no equipment management on here, you're going to the pile that's not going to be called. So I really think that you need to tailor the resume to what the job specifically is that you're applying to. That would be my biggest help for that.
That's great advice. It's I think we all have seen it where, especially young kids that are shotgun applying, they call it. So they're out there just kind of splatting the resume all over the place, not tailoring the resume or even the cover letter to the specifics of the job they're applying for. It's a little frustrating after a while. So JD, would you mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah, so mine's very similar to Cliff's. But my main thing was you should make it stand out professionally. So we all get, tons of resumes. They all look very similar. Is there a way that you can format it where it stands out just a little bit as we're going through, 50, 60 resumes? I've had people that have used like color blocking. I like that a little bit, that it just made it stand out from somebody else, and it kind of makes you go look at it a little bit harder. It's obviously got to have equipment experience on it, like Cliff said. If that's not near the top, then that's an issue. It should reflect you as a person on paper, but you as a person want to work in equipment, so it should reflect that, in my opinion. And then it needs to have appropriate details. So I've had people turn in a resume that's like, I spot 7-on-7, I spot defensive inside, I spot special teams. Like, okay, I can understand you can put a football on the ground. Like, what else do you do? What do you do that's applicable to the job you're applying for? And that's goes in with what Cliff said, but it's some of the student managers out there want to have a 2-page resume for spotting footballs and doing 7-on, and you can kind of wrap that up and be a little more concise with it and get your point across.
Thanks, JD. Anthony, would you chime in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like Cliff said, you get a lot of applications at times. So to me, what's important is just having like a clean and professional look. That's something that everyone can kind of do, whether, you might not have a lot of meat on it, if you're younger, and that's fine. Like, hey, we've all been there. I had a resume that was tiny and now it's a little bigger, but just make sure it's organized and proofread everything. Because the last thing, if you can't spell things right, then how can you do other things right? So, just be kind of, have it locked in, change it up if needed. Don't be discouraged if it's not that long. Don't feel the need to make it that long. Just kind of showcase what you're good at. Be honest about it. Because, we're a tight industry, so we'll figure out if you're not honest, but just get the info out there, showcase some people skills. That's something that we all do. We're all great at equipment managing and we're all great at other things, but at the end of the day, we're just dealing with people. And, so showcase that, like you said, yeah, you might work marketing and that's not 100% relative to equipment, but if you're applying for like an entry-level job, then showcase that. But yeah, obviously we'll have other things to talk, but, just keep it neat, organized, and that'll get you in a better spot than a lot, because you'll see some that are not pretty, and that's what you want to do. So, yep.
Perfect, Anthony. Thanks. Yeah, I think spell check. I mean, I still see stuff come through where things are misspelt or the wrong version of accept or access, or one of those words is used incorrectly. Yeah, it's amazing what gets missed, and it does. You're going through a pile of 50 resumes, it quickly sorts it to the bottom. So great advice there. Kind of getting into the details of it a little bit. What are some keywords or some aspects to a resume? We talk about, I know a lot of resumes are broken up in different chunks, obviously, job, past jobs, previous opportunities you've had. But what are some other things that are really helpful that you guys have seen on resumes that could be helpful for someone that's applying either first time or, looking for a kind of a career advancement piece? We'll start with Anthony.
Yeah, so to me, it's good to obviously, like, I think education is important to get towards the top, and then kind of work into the experience, and then at the bottom, kind of do your other skills, like, oh, I know how to use a computer and I'm AMA member and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of your traditional. Some add like the profile feature, and no, I've had it previously and stuff. So it's kind of basic. I mean, to me, like a basic resume doesn't hurt you. Like I've seen some recently that it was more a graphic design job, and it was they tried way too hard, and that's probably more acceptable in that field.
Nobody. I hooked up that extra extender cable. Did you notice how I hooked that to it? So you can use the dowel mount.
Thank you. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I think and kind of to my first point is just most young people, like I think I just updated my resume recently, and I just hit the second page, and I've been doing this for a dozen years. So it's okay having a one page, it's preferred. Just kind of get it out there. Do whatever you can do to make it look different. I know JD mentioned a little color pop. That's what I use. Just a little something you can change it on, each job. If I applied for a job at Princeton, I make it a little orange. If I'm applying Wyoming, make it brown, stuff like that. It doesn't hurt. But don't go too extreme. And then kind of just the last point is for formatting, always save it as a PDF when you send it out. Just because if you send a Word document, you spell a word wrong, it'll have a squiggly line. It could be your name and it's weird and it has a squiggly line, but if it's a PDF, you won't automatically know things are wrong unless you really read it. So that's my advice.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, easy to have little grammatical errors pop out that may not be really true on a resume. So that's awesome advice. JD, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I had a couple things written down. Same thing. I want to see education near the top, especially if it's a bachelor's degree required job. Like I need to know that you immediately check that box, because otherwise it's just getting tossed out. Make sure you show that you graduated or expected graduation date. Right around there, I want to see certification. So either if you sat for the test and you're waiting results, or you are certified. Most recent experience at the top. So what you're currently doing or most recently did. And then same thing with the PDF, and make sure you open the file before you upload it. I had someone who uploaded a blank PDF to me, and I can't do anything with that. I couldn't contact them and ask for a resume. They're immediately out of the job. And I had somebody whose PDF rendered as like blocks of gray and black, so you couldn't read the text at all. So make sure you're saving it as a PDF and then opening it and looking at it. And then for formatting and keywords, like have someone read it. Have someone else look through it. Someone you trust professionally that'll look through it and let you know if it looks off or funny or whatever. But that's the best way to kind of format it, because there's a million different ways to do it. So just find someone you trust to help you take a look at formatting.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. And Cliff, would you finish it out?
Yeah, I think the one thing about being the way you do these, if you're the third guy, most of the things are already taken. So in the light of spirit of trying to get as many questions asked later on as we can, I'm just going to go ahead and say ditto. Anthony and JD hit them all.
Perfect. Awesome. And the other resource too is a lot of you have career development and those type of folks in your realm. It's always kind of good if you're having to update a resume, or if you're helping one of your students update a resume, maybe for graduation. Use them. There's a lot of good tips on that side. I used to do that a bunch for a lot of my grad assistants that work for me that were asking for advice or great resources. They kind of see what's trending most recently. The big thing with resume building these days is making sure that it is easy to upload into said different websites and things that you're applying to, because that makes life easier too. Which again, going back to Anthony's point, the PDF convertibility is a big deal in that light. So kind of the last question that we have on resumes, and it could be real quick. Resume do's and don'ts. What do you see instantly that's maybe a huge win? Like, let's put this guy at the top of the pile. I know we've already kind of talked about some of them, but the other part of it is what do you see? I know we talk about, misspelling and put them to the bottom of the pile. What are some big, instant no's that you see? So Cliff, we'll start with you. And we go through everybody after that.
I think the two things for me that are don'ts, Anthony kind of hit on it before. I mean, get it on one page. I can't emphasize that enough. When you've got 40, 50, 60, 70 resumes that you're looking through, you can't be, flipping the page over or going down to the second or third page even. I had one kid who applied for a job for me. He had 4 pages on his resume. And I was just like, he's 24 years old. How could he have done all these things, right? It draws things into question. The other thing that I think is a major no for me is when there's gaps in employment. When you've got 2 years down where you don't, you worked at, I don't know, University of Miami of Ohio, right? And then you worked them from 20 to 22, and you were a student from 12 to 16. What did you do between 16 and 20? There's nothing there. So that's something that's, and look, we all have gaps. Okay. If you don't leave one job for another job, you're going to have a gap in employment, but be ready to try to explain that maybe in your cover letter or whatever, so that way somebody doesn't look at it and say, well, geez, they didn't put anything on here. Did they work at a school and they got fired and they're not willing to tell about it because they don't want you to find out exactly what happened? So it just seeps too much negativity into your resume if there's gaps in there. The dues, I mean, I think that most schools have guys that have been around for a long time. There's a lot of schools where people are connected with people at other schools. It doesn't hurt to throw somebody's name in there. If you're at Kansas and you don't put Larry Hare's name in there, I'm going to wonder, did they really work at Kansas? If you worked at Navy and you don't have Morgie's name on there, I'm going to call Morgie. I know Morgie. Hey, Morgie, what the heck's going on with this kid? Then there's going to be a conversation. So that is either going to be positive or negative for you too. So it doesn't hurt to name drop, but make sure if you name drop, you're going to name drop somebody that people know about and like and well respected within the profession, because that way you know that you're going to get good out of it and they don't even have to be a reference, right? So
that's awesome. Thanks, Cliff. Anthony, JD, would you share kind of your thoughts?
Yeah, so I wrote some stuff down. I'll buzz through them real quick. We already covered spelling and grammar, but I think consistency is another thing that you need to do on it. So if you're doing bullet points, every bullet point should either have a period or not have a period. Your tenses should be the same. That's kind of a big thing as you're reading through it, that it all kind of jives and grooves. Write your cover letter and or your resume to the job description. So some places use a grading rubric based on required qualifications and preferred. So make sure you list all of those. I've run into that with people that, like, their bullet point for their most recent job was head football equipment manager, and there was one bullet point below that, and the required qualifications weren't listed, and so I have to grade zeros. So then they're out because their score doesn't match. Like, you can't assume that I know what you did at your job, at your current job. You have to make sure you're listing the bare minimum of what's on the job description. Call your references, ask them to be a reference, and then alert them when you apply for jobs and where it's at, so they know what to expect. So that if I get a phone call, it's I know you're calling me. I know what you're calling about, and I'm ready to talk about you. have somebody else look at it. Like you said, use a job center on campus. If you're an undergrad student, use your resources. They will 100% help you. They'll let you do mock interviews. And then I only have one don't, which is don't lie. Be honest, even if it looks bad. Embellishment is lying, and that's worse than gaps. So to Cliff's point, like if you have a gap, own it. Don't change your work history date so there isn't a gap. But be ready to explain it or put it in your cover letter.
Thanks, JD. Anthony, can you finish this up for resumes?
Yeah, so obviously the cover letter, we're not really talking about it, but that's the way to kind of tell your story in long form, explain some of the things you did, some of the people you know, all that. Resume specifically, like everyone said, just kind of keep it bullet points. Don't be afraid to, like, obviously make it, first of all, make it relevant to the job. So if I'm applying for a football job and I don't do football right now, talk about how, oh, I did headsets, 2 years ago, and my previous job, I was full-time football and all of that. So make it cater to that. So, on my resume personally, I did hockey back in the day, don't do it anymore. But, if I was applying for a hockey job, bump up that area. Don't like lift it up, but like elaborate on some of those things you did for a couple of years versus, right now, you don't have to mention it if you're going to school that doesn't even have hockey. For don'ts, like everyone just said, like, don't lie, because we're gonna find out. You don't have to, like, we all know each other, so we can call, we can figure it out. Lying's not gonna help you, and we should all know that. And then the other thing is, don't get too personal. Obviously, it's one of those things, I think, human resources, you can't even ask marital status and this and that. It shouldn't matter, and it doesn't matter, so don't offer those info and all that. Once you are the next step, when we do interviews coming up, that's where you get to know each other and get vibes, but you don't need to throw that out there on a resume. So yeah, don't lie, be honest, and just show us what you're made of, in 1 page or less. So
It's great advice. Yeah, I know I used to do a lot of interviewing on campus. We used to get resumes with people's pictures on it, and HR policy said we had to kind of discard those resumes. So make sure you're not putting something on there that's going to disqualify your resume kind of off the top of the review process. So thanks guys for your information on the resume side of things. Let's jump into the interviews. There's a few more questions here that I think we're going to be really good just based on timing right now. So first question, we'll start out with you, Anthony. What are the top 3 things that you do to prepare for an interview as you've gone in to do an interview and as you apply for a job?
Yeah, so number 1, know as much as you can about the company and the people that you're going to meet. Obviously, things will come up, but you should know, like, if I'm going down, to meet with someone, know, hey, they're from Canada, so maybe mention something about this, or know what the job is, or know, oh, hey, I'm going to a school they're building a new facility in 2 years, and talk about how, oh, previously I was part of a move and all that. So just know what you're as much as you can. There's articles. I mean, half the schools are public, so you'll find info, and a lot of people have social media profiles and profiles on their website. So just do your research and come prepared. 2, practice. Do mock interviews. Go through some questions, and just practice, like, talking, like, okay, if they ask me this, I'm going to talk it out loud to yourself, to not necessarily a mirror, just talk, and just figure it out so you don't sound too crazy. And then 3, just kind of do whatever you need to get, like, mentally prepared. Think about our athletes on game days. They listen to hype up music, they do this, they meditate, whatever it is. This is your moment, so just be prepared, just clear your mind. Don't, like, schedule a bunch of things before or after that's going to stress you out, and just have some fun with it. So
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. JD, would you add to that?
Yeah, 2 of my 3 are his: practice and research, which he covered. And then my other thing was read over the job description and then have multiple follow-up questions. So I hate when we offer a candidate a chance to ask a question. They're like, don't forget, you covered everything. Have something ready. Have multiple questions. Keep track of them as they answer them. Scratch through them on the side. But you better have something that you can kind of give us a little bit more give and take at the end of the formal questions.
Yeah, that's really good. You run into the end where there's no additional questions, you kind of wonder if they're really serious about the job, right? So it's a big one. Cliff, would you finish us out on this one?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that frustrates me is I'm one of the older people on this call, and I can be honest about that. You guys have something nowadays that we never used to have. It's called the internet. Maybe you should use the internet and you should figure out some things about the school. I know that Anthony kind of said that, and JD hit it, but I mean, I couldn't believe it. We had somebody that interviewed for a job here, and they literally asked me how good our athletic department was. They had no idea about anything to do with our athletic teams. And it was like, wait a minute, you want to work in our athletic department and you didn't even know that, you know, how many Ivy League championships we won last year, or you don't know what sports we have? Like, those are just, you know, it's baffling to me that you want something, but you're not willing to do any homework to show any initiative. And that's the thing, right? We have an underappreciated job, and it doesn't pay a whole lot. And you've got to show some initiative to want that job. And if you can't do things, you know, on your own time to do some homework to show interest, then why should I spend time in investment in you in the future because of the fact that it just didn't show me that you were involved in the process, I guess.
That's great, Clifton. I'm going to add to that as well. We have the internet. We all have these things. And the best part about these smartphones is they have cameras. And every time I talk to someone, especially a lot of first rounds these days are done through this interactivity, the Zoom part. Record yourself and see how you come across and analyze those answering questions. And if you're talking too fast, or if you blink 1,000 times, you know, those little things are great things to kind of pick up on if you haven't done that before. It's an easy tool to do. So great advice, guys. I really appreciate the feedback. Clifton, we'll come back to you. What are some interview do's and don'ts? So what are some big things that you've seen that as you've done interviews, or if you remember doing maybe some bad interviews in the past? What do you guys have advice for do's and don'ts wise? So Cliff, we'll start with you.
I think one of the things to remember is it's a conversation, and it goes both ways. You know, a lot of times people overtalk because they get nervous and they start injecting things that aren't really there. Listen to the question, answer the question, right? If the person who's interviewing you comes back with a follow-up question, that's great. Okay. It's okay for that to happen, but don't sit there and talk for 20 minutes about something that is intended to be a 2-minute conversation to get to know you a little bit better. By the same token, don't have 1 or 2 word answers, because it also shows the opposite of that, right? So you can be overwinded, you can be underwinded. And that just comes with practice, right? I don't remember if it was JD or Anthony. I mean, find somebody, talk to them, have them ask you questions, be prepared for stuff. There are questions that sometimes my boss asks in interviews that I look at him and later I'll say to him, where did you come up with that question? Right? It wasn't scripted. It was just something that he came up with off the cuff, and the person couldn't even answer it because they weren't prepared for it. And part of preparation, you know, it's like your quarterback, it's like your point guard, whatever. You're going to prepare them for every possible situation as the coach. And it's the same way when you're going to interview. You got to know what defense they're throwing at you, and you got to be able to handle it coolly and calmly and collectively. And I just think that's, you know, a huge thing in the interview process that I see younger people who aren't experienced with it, who are nervous, who just trip over their own feet and can't get out of their own way. So that would be my big do and don't there.
Awesome. JD, would you take on the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, so I have do dress professional even over Zoom. You're never going to get in trouble for overdressing for an interview, but if you underdress for their expectation, that's just a mental ding. So you're hurting yourself with no reason. Be diplomatic and positive about your current and previous jobs. Even if you hated the person you worked for at your other old job, they may like that person. So be positive and diplomatic about it. Figure out a way to phrase things that you learn something and you learn how not to do something. But you have to work on those answers. Like Cliff said, that's a practice thing. You have to practice talking about things you don't like to talk about. Research the interview committee. When you schedule it, ask who's going to interview you in advance. Like, do your homework and be proactive about it. One of the things I do when we do Zoom calls, I put the interview question in the chat so the candidate can go back and look for it and kind of read. If they get off topic, they can kind of get back on topic on their own without us having to redirect it 3 or 4 times. You can ask for that. I don't know if that's something that the other two would agree with, asking for it if they're not doing it. On my don'ts, don't assume you have the job. Even if your boss is best friends with whoever's interviewing you, you have no idea who you're going up against or how well they're performing. So come at it from a little bit more of a humble perspective. We've had people interview with us that just think they're going to get the job, and that comes off inappropriate a lot of the time. Again, if somebody gives you an opportunity to ask a question, ask one. You should have something ready to go. Don't interview in a busy place that could distract you. Don't go to Panera or something. Like, find a place that's calm and quiet and you can kind of focus your thoughts. And then don't wear other team apparel, including your present employer. So that goes with dressing professionally.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. Anthony, would you finish this up?
Yeah, like I said, they've kind of hit on everything. To me, dress professional, be ready to go. Ask questions. Obviously, like JD said, no one wants to be like, yeah, we're good. Where it's like you've been talking, there's got to be something, even just make up a question, make people, show it off that way, and be passionate, just be excited. It's a great opportunity. It might not work out, but just be excited. And, it's hard. Like Cliff said, you get a lot of candidates, and to make it to, even if it's 5 people being interviewed, like, that's awesome. Be excited and, be ready for anything. Don't be late. That's a pet peeve. Obviously, things come up and people understand that, but there's also, as we know in this industry, there's coaches that don't care about excuses. And so try your best. Don't be late, and don't trash old employees or anything. Like you said, we're all connected, so we know each other. So even if you don't love it and that's why you're leaving or this and that, talk about the good things or be honest, but you don't have to be that honest. So yeah, nothing else. They kind of hit on everything. Just have fun and do your best.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the interesting part about being athletics or even on a college campus is it's not easy to find some of the places that you look. I've tried it myself. I've been on a lot of y'all's campuses, and it's not easy to find. So definitely scout out where you need to go and make sure you're prepared for that. The other thing too that we've always advised our students, even at Uncommon, is have a notebook and pen and take notes. The active listening part is really, really important to kind of show interest and obviously have something there to know kind of the next steps and remember what you need to do for the next steps. So great answers there, guys. We'll come back to you, Anthony. What are some good questions that you like to ask besides the obvious ones that, tell us about this, that, and the other thing? What are some great questions that allow you to kind of figure out someone's character or their work ethic or so those types of things? So Anthony, we'll start with you, and JD, you're next.
So what I kind of like to do is always get someone talking about something that they're interested in, show off what they're passionate about. So just kind of talk about whatever your greatest achievement is, and that's open-ended, where it could be something work related, see how they say that, or it could be something, hey, like, I'm a Rubik's Cube master and I did something cool. Like, it just allows people to talk, and it's a way to see their personality, because at the end of the day, like, you got to this stage, you're more than likely capable, but it's all about like, hey, how do we get along? What is your personality? What's your vibe? So say something a little different, and then, get people to talk about that. And then you know, and another thing like that is obviously like if you know, the more standard, like, oh, what's your future goals and aspirations, obviously, and see how someone answers that. It could be like, oh, you know, I'm good in this position, or I want to, you know, advance to this. And people have different opinions. I think it's best if like, you know, you're honest and be like, hey, you know, I want to do this, but I can also see myself doing that and that. And, you know, some people might be like, oh, well, he's trying to up and leave or this and that. But to me, it just shows you're passionate. You have a plan that you want to do and you're interested in doing things. So yeah, those are kind of my basic questions. You know, there's a
Yeah.
many more, but those are two.
Yeah, get conversation started, get a good feel of their character. That's awesome. JD, would you add something to that?
Yeah, my number one is I want to know your why. Why do you want to work in equipment? What is it that, you know, intrinsically motivates you? Because we know it's not the money. So what is it that makes you want to get up and work this many hours and serve other people? Like, walk me through the why. And that tells me a lot about that person's mentality and what they want out of the job and what they want out of the experience. So that's always something I try to get in to figure out what their motivation is.
Great. And Cliff, would you add?
Yeah, I always try to start out with an easy question, kind of like what the guys were saying. I'll ask them to tell me two people that influenced them growing up, and to give me at least one thing that they carry from that person to their everyday workday right now. And that gives you a little bit of perspective on who they look up to. It gives you perspective as to, you know, what types of qualities they're bringing with them. Because if it's something that they're coming up with right then and there, it's something that they believe in and that they aspire to. And so those are easy ways to kind of differentiate candidates. And it's, you know, like Anthony said, it's an open-ended question, so they can talk about themselves, and it kind of gets them comfortable in the room before you start asking the more difficult questions.
Awesome. You know, one of the favorite questions that I got asked in my first job actually out of college was, if I could be one animal, what would it be and why? And many months later, I got to ask, like, why did you ask that question? It was one of those things where it's just trying to break down the barrier of, hey, and have a conversation and seeing if someone can think on the fly. I thought, you know, and I've used that many times since then as a just kind of a great way to kind of have kind of break down the barrier a little bit. So thanks guys for all the feedback. Cliff, we'll come back to you with this one. You know, as an interview and an interviewer, what kind of things are you looking for during the interview, whether it be confidence, cadence, specific answers to questions, things like that, from, you know, student workers that you're maybe interviewing or other equipment managers that you're hiring through the process? So what are some things that you're looking for in that interview that are going to make you feel good about hiring decision?
I think the biggest thing that I'm looking for is who's going to best make my team better. I think that, you know, a lot of times somebody will say, yeah, I've got a job open and it's specifically working with track and volleyball or something like that. Sometimes I look at it from the standpoint of who's the best equipment manager out there, and are they better suited to be the football person? And the football person that I have, maybe they're better at track and volleyball. You know, I think that sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves and we pigeonhole our positions. And I'm just looking for the person who's going to make my team better. And, you know, I've had to do that. I interviewed for a job and the position that was open was football. And the head coach went in and said, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't need a football person. You're the football person. You're going to move out to football. So then it became, okay, if I move out to football, then I need to find somebody that's an Olympic person that can check these boxes because I won't be on the Olympic side anymore. So I think that, you know, when you're in the process, yes, I know that you know, Steve left and we got to replace Steve. Okay, what did Steve work? He worked these sports. Well, it doesn't always have to be that way. So I always look at at myself and my staff and think, okay, what's the best thing for our group? Is this person going to fit in with our group from a personality standpoint? And what's the best hire for the university? And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, but that's where you end up really making a change that's a positive. You know, if you have somebody that's retiring or you have somebody that's really good in their position and they left and went someplace else, a lot of times we try to pigeonhole somebody into that same exact position and want them to be the same person, and it doesn't work out. So I guess my thing is that I try to be more open about it and think about, like I said, what's going to be best for my group.
Awesome, Clifton. JD, would you chime in on that one?
Yeah, so some of the key things I'm looking for in the interview is a demonstration of knowledge. And I want you to be able to talk about what you've done to the point where I'm confident you can do it. Because if I bring you in, like, you need to be able to inspire the coaches and student athletes you work with that you're capable. You need to have the confidence that you can do the job. And so that when you're interacting with them for the first few months, like, they're confident that you can do the job. I want to see your passion come through. And outside of the interview, I want to know if your former supervisor or current supervisor is going to call me ahead of time. Are they a reference for you? Do they know you're interviewing with me? Are they calling me ahead and saying, hey, you're going to interview this guy, like, the girl, like, here's the deal, here's what I think of them, here's the job they've done, here's why I think it's the right move. You know, are they in the loop? And did you generate loyalty to the point where they want to call in advance for you? And then at the end of it, you know, did you carry yourself in a mature and professional manner? You know, are you somebody that I can leave alone in a room with coaches or admin, or you can fill in a staff meeting for me? It's somebody that I trust to carry themselves professionally. You know, did you exude that confidence and professionalism throughout? Like, those are, I can teach you how I do equipment at Wyoming. It's more about, can you take that and inspire everybody else that you can do the job too?
Awesome, JD. Thank you. Anthony, would you finish this out?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of them. To me, I've said it a bunch and I'll keep saying it, but just be passionate, showcase good people skills, communication skills, you know, customer service experience. I mean, some of the best people are just like, hey, you have experience just helping people. And that's what we're about. We're helping students, we're helping coaches, we're helping admin, we're doing it all. So to me, that's just that. It's just show off that you're a hard worker and that you want to be there, you know, just take it all seriously. And yeah, so nothing too different from what they said.
Great. We'll come right back to you, Anthony. Want to have a quick 1 minute story time. If you can stick the minute, that'd be helpful. What's a good story that you have of a good example or bad example of an interview that we can learn from or take away from? And we'll start with you, Anthony, and go to JD.
Yeah, so that's a little trickier, but I found one. So you know, basically the story, I'll go to the end first. It kind of teaches you to always be ready, always be prepared, and, you know, kind of just be passionate for what you applied for. So before I was at Rutgers, I was at Lafayette College. I was on our anniversary trip. We went to Hawaii. We landed in Hawaii, had a voicemail to interview for the job. As I'm waiting for baggage claim, called, scheduled the interview, kind of did all the prelim stuff. And then, you know, mid Hawaiian vacation, I had my finest Hawaiian polo on and did a Zoom call for the job out there, and worked out, got the campus thing and took the job and had a few good fun years. So kind of just, you know, hey, you know, I was honest with them. They were like, hey, we could do it later. I'm like, nah, I've got a half hour. I mean, you know, they're not that long. You know, you could prepare at night before bed and do it. And so always be ready. And, you know, you applied for it for a reason, so do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. About you, JD, you got a good story you can share with anybody?
I got a quick one with no names. If I scheduled an interview for 30 to 35 minutes on Zoom, like, my expectation is we do that. I think the shortest interview I've ever had was 5 minutes. It was all yes, no answers, and they didn't ask questions at the end, which shades some of the things I've been saying. But take the opportunity, take the time that we are scheduling and blocking out to give you to get to know you better. Like, even if you feel like it's a yes, no question, find a way to expand on it, find a way to take the time to showcase yourself. Like, that's the only chance you're getting. That's all we're judging you off of, is that interview.
Awesome, JD. Thanks. Cliff, what kind of story you got?
I've got, I'm going to do two real quick since JD went short. I interviewed for a job one time, and I had been at the school for maybe 35, 40 minutes. And I was talking with the guy who would be my boss. And I just said to him, you know what, this place isn't for me. He said, what do you mean? I said, we can end this right now. There's no way I'd ever work here. It's okay to be honest with people. It's okay to not waste their time. The other one I'll share was somebody who came in to interview for a job for me. This is going to hit on a couple of the points that JD and Anthony brought up, but I just share it because it was like, what can you do to not get a job? I had somebody who came in and interviewed in a tie. The tie wasn't buttoned up. So it was hanging down, didn't look good, spilled, he had a breakfast sandwich that he put ketchup on, and he spilled ketchup on his shirt. And the first thing he said was, geez, I'm never going to be able to get this out. And I'm thinking, part of the job is laundry. How are you not going to be able to get ketchup out? I mean, like it was just comical to me that he was interviewing for a job to be an equipment manager, and he was admitting to me that he didn't think he'd be able to get the ketchup stain out of his shirt. So I guess it's okay, as the employer, as somebody who's interviewing with me, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. It's okay for you to be brutally honest with me, right? If you find that it's not going to be a match, tell me. I have more respect for that than I do for whining and dining you for 3-4 hours for an on-campus visit, and you sitting there saying, having me go through the entire day and then not say anything and then be disappointed or whatever because you thought you were going to get the job. So so those are two of my fun horror stories, if you will.
Thanks, Cliff. Appreciate you all and answering some questions. I know Melly, you got to run, but I wanted to open up the floor to you, Melly, before you're able to take off.
Good afternoon, everybody. Another fine mentorship and engagement Zoom learning session. We've had just some fine panelists here and offering their wisdom, and I hope all of you have engaged in this and learned a little bit of something. We're in April now. We're full spring. Conventions coming near. Hopefully, everyone has, if not already, made their plans to come out to Oklahoma City. You're getting close to it. It's going to be a great convention. It's going to be great workshops, and it's actually a great little city. I've been to Oklahoma City quite a bit, and I was just there in the with softball recently. I'm right now in Champaign, Illinois, and I'm telling you, Oklahoma City got nothing. Champaign, it doesn't have anything in Oklahoma City. It's a really beautiful town. That's about it. That's all I had. I'm glad to see we had a 98 people on this. What a great way to engage as an association and get a little bit better. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Melly. Katie or Jalen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, thank you to the panel for being on this. Just kind of want to reach out to a lot of the younger members on this call, or even not necessarily younger members, but anyone, if they want to send along, like if they have questions or want to send a resume or cover letter along and they're not sure who they can send it to, they can send it to the mentorship and engagement email, and our committee will look at it and kind of give feedback. We're here to help you guys. And then also, if you're looking for a mentor or want to become one, send an email to that email address as well. And we're here to help you guys. We're all in this together, and reach out to your fellow equipment managers, and we're all here for each other.
All right. Appreciate you all. Thanks for Cliff and Anthony and JD giving us some time, and we'll see you guys again in a few weeks. Make sure you scan your QR code for your CEUs, and thanks again. See y'all later.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Cliff. See you. Joe, have a great day.
Josh, you too, man. Appreciate you doing all this, man.
Yeah,
It's
no
awesome
problem.
stuff, man. It's real good
Tell
stuff.
Steven I said hi.
I sure will, man.
See ya.
Bye-bye.